Well, welcome to this week's edition of Hawk Talk. I'm Seth Morkerke.
And I'm Susanna Moberg.
And we have a guest who's a little close to home, but took sort of a different route. Go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, and what you do here at DSU.
I'm Ashley Larson. I'm from Miles City, Montana. I am a junior college transfer from Casper College, and my major is business administration.
Yeah, you came from the greatest state in the union. I always say Wyoming. It's my home state.
Behind North Dakota, but.
Oh, sure.
No.
Talk about that transition from high school basketball to junior college basketball in Wyoming, and then to here now in North Dakota.
So from high school to junior college, it was a bigger jump than I expected, even if it was just junior college. Mm-hmm. The pace of the game is way different. The girls are different. You know, everybody's tall, and I'm not, and so that was a big change. But the pace of the game was definitely the hardest part.
Yeah, and then why did you end up choosing Dickinson State? I
chose it because of their business program, for one, and then their basketball team. You know, I've always wanted to play college basketball, and so for Coach Lewis and Coach Rayback to give me the opportunity to continue on after junior college, it was amazing. Yeah,
and this team, you know, we had a transition year last year with the girls basketball and the men's basketball, sort of. This year, there's only 4 or 5 returning from last year, so it's sort of a new team again. So how has that felt being a newcomer, embracing that role and then building that team?
Well, I'm going to refer back to my junior college when I came in as a freshman. You know, it's about the same. Coming in new, you don't know what to expect, right. You know, what the coaches are like, and so that's how it was here. I didn't know. I mean, I've seen them coach before because they coached at Miles, but I didn't know what to expect, and so I just went with the flow and did it. Yeah.
The seniors on the team have experience here, playing here for this team. How have they led and molded the new team?
They really accepted the newcomers, and they really pushed us to become better. And it's just like their leadership roles are insane, and it's helped us get to where we are.
There you go.
Cool. You're a point guard. This was supposed to be Seth's question.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. Okay, I'm just going to look at this. You're a point guard, leader of the team, obvious leader. How do you take that role and motivate the team?
Well, I'm not usually a point guard, but our point guards are out right now, so I had to step up and take that role, and so it was a good opportunity for me to be able to step up and become a leader, you know, and everybody looks up to me for that.
Yeah, I think you've commanded the floor very well as the point guard, especially in the games that I've watched. Talk about the season so far. You know, I think we're 9 or 10 games into the season. We've played some long road trips. I've gone out to Butte. I've played a lot of frontier schools, which is really good for us, I think. And I've played Minot in 2 exhibition games. Got to play in Forebears, and we always talk about that. That's like a cool experience. But talk about the season, you know, from the beginning, the practicing for like a month, and then you finally got to play games up until this point now. Yeah, so the preseason was tough. You know, preseason's always tough, but, you know, it got us in shape. You know, chemistry, we have good chemistry now. And then our first game, you know, it was a big win. And then, you know, after that, we kind of went on a little slump. We were in a little slump, and then we got a big win against Northern last week, and then Rocky got us. It was a tough one. Nationally ranked, though, so that's a good opponent for you. Talk about playing that game, as you know, it was here, which was nice, over Thanksgiving, but how was it like to play a nationally ranked team? And they're Division I, I believe, in NAIA.
Yep, so, I mean, I don't really think about that. I just go in, you know, play my game. So them being nationally ranked, it like motivates me to try and play harder, and so because I want to beat them really bad.
That's good.
Yeah. We talked about, you know, you guys did have lots of very long road trips at the beginning of your season. How did you stay prepared on those long trips to go out and play the best game you could?
You know, lots of ice baths, lots of icing. You got to get your homework done early, sleep as much as you can. You know, that's just simple things like that.
Oh, thanks. What's it been like for you to come here and play in Scott Gym?
Oh, I don't know. For me, like, I never, before coaches came here from Miles, I never heard of Scott Gym. I never realized how, like, what's the word? I don't know what I'm looking for, but, like, it's a great environment to play in and everything like that.
Yeah, we're trying to make Scott Gym great again.
Yeah.
Parker started the hashtag last year. I'm trying to carry it over. Looking forward to some home games after the break, you know, we have a lot more home games, like 4-game stretches at a time, and that's going to be really cool. I'll ask this one. Whose personality on the team has surprised you the most and would probably surprise us, like one of those quiet people who comes out when the team is really together?
Probably Brooke Jans.
Yeah.
She's quiet on the court. She doesn't really show any emotion, but when she's just around us and it's just us, she's really funny and she's just a good human to be around.
Yeah. That's good. That's always good to have those type of players on your team.
Yeah.
Looking ahead at this next weekend, we're playing you guys are playing. I'm not playing. You guys are playing at Presentation. It's the first conference game. The men's and the women's will be there, and it's good to get a conference game in before Christmas. So talk about what it's been like to prepare for that first conference game and what the keys to victory are.
So what it's like to prepare, it's just we prepare the same for every team. You know, it's a grind all week until that game, and so we're all constantly getting better. And then the keys to win, you know, obviously putting the ball in the hole.
Yeah.
We've been struggling with that lately. Good defense. We got to play good defense.
Yep.
They got some scores.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really all you need to.
Good
Defense
and good
leads to offense.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
So from your standpoint as the point guard, as a leader on the team, what are some ways that you kind of hold the team together through those ups, those great victories, but also through those downs?
So I've been told that I have like a level head, and so like in rough situations I'm calm because I've had experience in that from JUCO and all that. So they look up to me to stay calm, and so if I'm calm, they're calm. It's just or vice versa. If they're calm, I'm calm. It's just
Yeah. Looking at some of the people and the girls on your team, some of the freshmen have really stepped up. You mentioned Brooke and Kaylee. They both have stepped up in big ways. So what has that been like to see those girls step up as freshmen? And then how does that motivate the rest of you girls as kind of upperclassmen, seeing them do so well?
Well, coming in as a freshman is always tough, you know. So, and especially coming in at a 4-year, you're really not knowing what to expect. So you have to build relationships with everybody, and you know, I'm really proud of all the freshmen for stepping up, and they've played well. They've done everything that coaches have asked, and there's still room to improve, and they're doing that.
Yeah. We're asking everyone this question. It's our centennial year, and you have kind of a fun story on how you ended up at DSU, so a different perspective. But after being here at DSU, what does Dickinson State mean to you?
I really love DSU. Ever since I've stepped foot on campus, you know, in the summer on my visit, I kind of knew then that I was coming here, and so I just like how everybody seems like a family, and you know, it's so close knit. The community is always there, you know, fans supporting the games and all that. So it's nice. It's a good community to be in.
Yeah, love this place. Well, Ashley, it's been great to have you on. We're looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to next semester getting some more home games.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll be back right after this.
Life is full of many successes, achievements, stages. Every year we grow, things change, and pretty soon we realize we want and need to do more. When you're ready for that next step, Dickinson State University will get you there. Find out how at dsublue.com.
Welcome back to Hawk Talk. We've got a first-timer guest on the show today. We're trying to expand a little bit more. We've got sports at DSU, but we're trying to cover other parts of DSU as well. So with that in mind, we'll have our guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, what you do here at DSU, and how long you've been here?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Brent Rogers. I've been at DSU. I've just started, well, I guess not just started anymore, but I'm in my 4th year at DSU. I am the choir director. My official title is assistant professor of music, but basically I'm the choir director. I teach voice lessons and a whole bunch of other music courses as well.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your background in music? So some of the choirs you performed in and conductors you worked under, and how all those experiences led you here to DSU.
Sure. So my educational path kind of wandered a little bit before I figured out what I was doing. I started off college as a piano performance major. I went to 2 different colleges my freshman and sophomore years of college. I served a mission for my church in between those 2 years, and so there was kind of a couple of years of where do I want to go when I get home. And then after my sophomore year, I realized, the way I always like to put it is, I realized that I like people better than I like pianos. Because as a piano performance major, you are expected to spend at least 3 hours every day in the practice room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I realized that, number one, I didn't want to do that. I wasn't enjoying the practice time. Like, I had friends that loved practicing. I was like, you're crazy. And number two, I realized that that really wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my career. So I transferred to Brigham Young University my junior year, finished out a bachelor's degree in music education there, continued on and did a master's degree at BYU in choral conducting. And for the last for all of the years that I was at BYU, I sang with the BYU Singers, which is, I mean, for people in this part of the country, I like to compare it to the Concordia Choir or the St. Olaf Choir. It's one of those big college choir programs, and the BYU Singers is BYU's touring choir, and so I got to go to a lot of different places as part of that choir. It's really cool. So then I taught for 3 years after I finished my master's degree. I taught middle school for a year, then I taught community college for 2 years. Then I realized that I really did want to be at a 4-year school, and so I went back to the University of Arizona for my doctorate, spent 3 years there, finished my doctorate, and then got the job here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Well,
you've been
we
everywhere.
are blessed to have
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I mean, since you've been here, there's been a lot of growth
Yeah.
in the program itself. Some of that's due to the community outreach you're doing, but talk about some other things that you were doing within DSU and outside of DSU to grow that program.
So musicians, especially college music professors who are in charge of ensembles, always talk about how do you recruit. And in fact, when I was interviewed for the job here at DSU, that was one of the questions, was how do you go about recruiting for the program? And really, it's straightforward. Number one, you do good work.
Yeah.
And number two, you let people know that you're doing good work.
Yeah.
And that sounds super simple, but it's not really that simple at all. I do a lot of high school visits. I've really, as Susanna can attest, I really push the singers to get the very best product that we can. And then take that out into the community. I've started doing a lot more concerts out at various churches in the community. And I think just letting people know what's happening here makes them aware that, oh, DSU has a strong music program. Maybe I should consider donating. Maybe I should consider sending my child, my grandchild, whatever. I've also, since I've been here for a while and I'm becoming more established, I'm getting invited to do more honor choirs. So last week I was in Glendive doing their District 11 honor choir for that. And that's another great recruiting tool because then the students actually get the chance to work with me for a couple of days, see how I do things, the more I do these, the more I have students coming up to me saying, so tell me about DSU.
Yeah.
So good sign for things to come.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Seth and I talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the year. We talked about our upcoming homecoming concert, but we talked about how every year and even every semester, it's a new group of musicians, even if just 1 or 2 voices is different within the choir, and how you get a new blend, a new sound, a new choir that has to work together. So what are some things that you do with every new group that continues that growth beyond just the semester, but throughout the whole entire year?
What I'm learning, perhaps more than anything at DSU, is that I'm right. By which I mean, what I've been taught to do to build a program actually works.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Susanna can, again, attest. Every semester, we really start with the same things. We always come back to the fundamentals. And I would imagine it's the same. I've never really played college sports or anything like that, but I would imagine it's very much the same for building a strong football program or a strong basketball program. I'm dealing with breath support issues for the students. I'm dealing with issues of making sure they're producing their best sound, all those kinds of things. And in every rehearsal, that's reinforced over and over and over again. And so really, regardless of who's in there, we're always moving forward because it's those same concepts that are going to allow a choir to make its best possible sound.
Right.
Yeah. And after that homecoming concert, we talk with coaches about what did you take away from the game and what's your game plan going into future games. So for you, from that choral perspective, after our first homecoming concert, the first concert with that new group of students, kind of what was the takeaway of that concert and what was your game plan moving ahead to the next concerts?
One of the big takeaways was that I've got a really strong group of students this semester. The chorale, which is our non-audition choir, is smaller than it's been in a fall semester in the past.
Yeah.
But the individuals in that group are really strong singers and strong musicians as well. We're learning music faster than we ever have before, which is huge because you don't want to just sing the right notes and the right rhythms. You want to be able to infuse it with style and character. You want to breathe life into those notes and rhythms. And the group that I have, both in the chorale, which is the non-audition group that I mentioned, and the chamber singers, which is the audition group, it's a really strong group of students. And so we have been able to push the music past just notes and rhythms, which just motivates me to want to push them yet even farther. And let's see, because there's this 80-20 rule in music. It takes about 20% of your time to learn 80% of what you need to learn for the concert, and then 80% of the time to learn that last 20%. Wow. And so we're getting way farther into that last 20% than we have since I've been here. And so my game plan, you have to plan your repertoire well in advance, because I can't just have the homecoming concert be over with and say, oh shoot, what am I going to do for the holiday concert? It's got to be ready to go. And so really it confirmed to me that the students are prepared for the repertoire that I wanted them to do for this holiday concert, and that we can get past those notes and rhythms and really breathe some life into this music.
Yeah. Real quick before we get to the next question, Susanna, what did you take away from that homecoming concert, and what did you see moving into this next holiday concert?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we said, it's a new group of students every time, and so it's kind of interesting, and I'm glad that Dr. Rogers does this. He records us singing and then lets us listen to it, because from where you're standing, you just hear the people around you, but you don't hear like kind of as a whole what it sounds like. And so like after the concert, listening to that and hearing like, okay, maybe sometimes I need to back off and listen a little more to my neighbors, and that kind of takeaway, or hearing like, wow, we as a section are really overpowering or underpowering, and kind of hearing how you relate to the rest of the choir. I think that's really cool, and I'm glad he does that for us so that we can hear it and then learn from it in that way.
Yeah, learning.
Being in a musical ensemble is kind of a strange thing in that way, because you think you know what's going on, and then you listen to the recording and you're like,
idea.
Nope, that wasn't it.
Like, wow, I definitely didn't know I was doing that.
Right,
So
really cool.
Moving into this next concert that's coming up in a couple of weeks, you're going to the Abbey in Richardson. How did you choose that spot, and how have you done that in the past? I know that's kind of been a thing of the past where we go every other year, but talk about that. And why we chose this song, or why you chose this song. I always refer to myself as if I'm in. Why did you choose this song for the concert? Maybe I will.
Next semester, right? So when I first came to Dickinson, it was kind of a strange situation. My wife and I were in the middle of adopting our two sons, and we had to maintain residency in Arizona. So I came here on my own for the first couple of months, and then we finalized the adoption, and my wife and kids came. But for those first several weeks that I was here, I was living with Joel Walters, who is one of our adjunct professors. He teaches piano at DSU, and I got a lot of opportunities to chat, a lot of opportunities to learn from Joel about the history of DSU's music program, and the history of the community of Dickinson. And so it was a really great experience for me to just be able to have those chats with Joel every evening. And almost the first day I was here, he said, you have to go check out Assumption Abbey. You have to go look at that space. Because for choirs, we love basically Catholic churches, especially old Catholic churches, because they typically there's no carpet. All of the surfaces are hard, which makes the sound reverberate for a long time, which is a wonderful acoustic for choirs. Bands don't like that acoustic quite as well, but for choirs, it's a really great space. And so that's how I got interested in that. And I went out there. I paid a visit. The monks are very welcoming, and they gave me a tour and showed me around, let me play the organ, and just kind of get a sense for how everything works there. And I just thought this is a place that we have to perform on a regular basis. As far as choosing the repertoire for this concert, I knew coming in that there was a tradition in Dickinson of doing Messiah. I believe it was every other year. I also know that Messiah is a very tricky piece of music. And so the year that I came should have been a Messiah year. But I wasn't ready because I needed to know who I was working with to make sure, because Messiah is performed a lot, because everybody loves Handel's Messiah. but I have heard it performed poorly many times. And I wanted to make sure that if these students were going to experience Handel's Messiah, they were going to experience it the way it should be performed.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take a couple of years and kind of see where things were at, see who I was working with, and make sure that the students were ready for that. And at the end of last year, I thought, you know what, we're getting pretty strong. I think we're ready to take on Messiah. So that was
Cool.
where the decision came from.
Yeah.
Plus, this is an Abbey year, and doing Messiah in
the
the Abbey is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you came from some bigger schools. You mentioned BYU, Arizona, but now you're at a small school. So I'm sure there's been some challenges, both with, you know, the group that auditions for it and just the general choir. So talk about, you know, some of those challenges that you've faced over the past 4 years, how you've overcome them, and what you're doing with those challenges now.
Yeah, one of the big challenges at a small school for a music program is scheduling, because at a big
Yep.
school like BYU or the University of Arizona, if you are admitted into one of the auditioned choirs, number one, you're expected to be in that choir both semesters. It's a full year commitment. And if you have a class in your major that conflicts with that class, usually there's another option, there's another section of that class. Or if not, you just have to wait to take that class. That's kind of the expectation at these
Yeah.
big schools, because they are able to expect that, because the scheduling is more flexible. At DSU, I mean, you guys know, in your upper level major classes, these are small classes, there's only one section, and when it's offered, you take it, because
Yeah.
you got to get out in 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
and so you got to take that class when it's offered. So that's been a big challenge. And the solution to that really has been scheduling smartly. So we have the non-audition group over the noon hour, which it's not that no classes are offered then, but fewer classes are offered on the noon hour. It does mean that some of the choir students don't get that time for lunch, and so they make that sacrifice to be able to be in the ensemble. And then the chamber singers I have scheduled later in the day, again, to try and avoid conflicts with some other classes.
Yeah.
It has created the problem of conflicts with athletic practices, and so that we kind of have to work around. One of the football players, Matt Day, sings with the chamber singers. And he just can't sing with us in the fall semester because football occupies so much of his time.
Right.
But in the spring semester, when the football practice schedule is more flexible, then he's able to come and rehearse with chamber singers. So I have to be willing to be flexible scheduling wise, and then just be as smart as I can with where we're putting the classes.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we've got a big trip coming up, and I'm pretty excited about it, and I know everyone else in the choir is pretty excited about it. I know I talk about it all the time, but we're going to New York again. This is the second trip to New York that this choir will have taken. And can you just kind of explain a little bit how we first got involved in these trips? You know, we're going through a company, so how we first got involved in it, and then just talk about what an amazing opportunity it is, you know, not only for the students in the group, but for the music program as a whole, that we have these opportunities to go.
Yeah, so I want to comment on that last thing first, and then I'll answer your other questions. You remember Clayton Hinshaw that came with us 2 years
Yeah.
ago. He was at DSU as a music ed major my first year here, and towards the end of the year he was thinking, I'm not sure that this is the right path for me. You know, he just wanted to check out his options and take some time off of school. He was working at Buffalo Wild Wings during the summer, and I went in after I had found out about this opportunity for us to go sing in New York the first time a couple of years ago. And he happened to be our server, and I said, hey Clayton, guess what? We're going to New York next year. And his comment was, I never expected to have that kind of opportunity at a small school like DSU. And that's the thing that I think is so cool about this, is that, you know, we are a small school, and we're in an isolated part of the country. And music is being done at a tremendously high level in places like New York City and LA and other major metropolitan areas around the country. And I wanted the students to have an opportunity to experience that in the most authentic way possible. So the way this all started was there are a couple of companies in New York that organize these performances where choirs can come, get together with other choirs so that you have a big enough group, and then perform with a professional orchestra, with a professional conductor. My mentor at the University of Arizona, Bruce Chamberlain, had been contracted by one of these companies, Manhattan Concert Productions, to conduct one of their concerts. And he sent me a letter and said, Brent, I've been asked to do this with Manhattan Concert Productions. I think this would be a great opportunity for your students. I know that you will do good work. I know your students will be well prepared. Would you be interested in doing this? So we got that personal invitation to go sing in New York.
Wow.
And I immediately went to Marilyn Lee, who was the department chair at the time, and I said, Marilyn, we have to do this. And she said, how much is it going to cost? And we sorted all that out, and we made it work. The department subsidized a big chunk of that trip that year, which I was really, really grateful for, because that was really what made it possible that year. And so now that we are on the list of Manhattan Concert Productions groups, most groups, if they want to perform with MCP, they have to audition for it. But now that they know me and they have heard what I bring to the table when I bring a group to an experience, we don't have to audition anymore.
We're the in-crowd now.
Exactly. Yeah, we're the in-crowd. So they send me a flyer every year. They say, this is what we're doing this year. Do you want to do any of these? And when I saw what they were offering this year, I thought, you know what, this would be a good year for us to do this again.
Yeah.
So is this a joint production of a bunch of schools where you guys practice here and then you all meet there? Is that what I'm? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we learn the repertoire prior to going to New York, and then we spend 2 days rehearsing that repertoire together, and then we perform at Carnegie Hall. It's kind of a quick thing, but that's how it works in the professional musical world. If you are in the New York Philharmonic, you don't rehearse for weeks for the concert. You rehearse 3 or 4 times. Bam, that's it, you go.
Oh, wow.
And that's another reason that I wanted the students to have this experience, because this is how it works in the professional world as musicians. And they should experience that so that if that's their plan career-wise, they know what's involved.
And truly, I cried when we sang at Carnegie Hall the first time. So we got done, and I was like, oh my gosh, we just did that. And I was like crying, and it was really embarrassing probably for the people around me as I was like, oh, but it was so cool. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's cool.
All right, I'm gonna let a little plug right now. We've got some Christmas caroling coming up. So do you want to talk a little bit about Christmas caroling, how they can contact you, and kind of the plan for that?
Yeah, so as you can guess, going to New York is not cheap. We're looking at about $2,000 for each student to go. The students are expected to pay half of that, and then we are working together as a group to raise the rest of what's going to be required to get us to New York. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're hiring out as carolers. We've already got a couple of gigs. A couple of people have asked us to come and perform for their Christmas parties, and so we're just hiring out, and if people are interested in having us, they can contact me directly, and we'll work out the scheduling and pricing and all of that stuff that way.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
It'll be cool. We're gonna get Seth to join us and
Yeah.
Santa hat. And we can play the jingle bells. We'll find something that needs
There you
jingle
go.
bells.
We'll
maybe.
get the percussionist
Maybe I'll
jingle bells
sing just
out.
a little bit
Yeah.
too.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Look at that. That'd be fun. All right.
You know, last question here we're asking everybody, since it is the centennial year, we're going to do kind of a twofold here. What does DSU mean to you? And maybe talk about, you know, a certain event that's happened or a great memory that you have over the past 4 years.
So, as you mentioned before, coming to DSU has been a big culture shift for me because I'm accustomed to these big universities. I did my freshman and sophomore years, those were smaller schools, but I think that the school I was at my freshman year still had about 5,000 students, so still about 3 times the size of DSU. And so it's been an adjustment, but what I have seen, what I've seen as the great strength of DSU is the small size. Because I see students come into our music program that might not be able to get admitted to a music program at a larger school. But because it's a small school, because they get a lot of individualized attention from their professors, by the time they graduate, they are performing on par with musicians at these big schools. And that, I think, is the great strength of DSU, is that you get and especially in the music program, you get lots and lots of individualized guidance and attention to help you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
And I think that the New York trip 2 years ago was really a manifestation of that principle, that some of the students in that group might not have been able to be in a choir that could do something like that at a larger school. But we're a small group. I could spend a lot of time with them, coaching them along individually. Students that were having trouble, it was a very difficult piece of music that we did 2 years ago, the Mozart Requiem. And so students that were having some difficulty keeping up, I have the time, because I have relatively small classes, to bring them into my office and spend 10 or 15 minutes and just iron out some of those little glitches that are not working out very well for them.
Yeah. Well, Brent, it's been great to have you on. I thank you. This is cool. I'm excited to kind of expand Hawk Talk into the community a little bit more. And so thank you for coming on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And we'll be back right after this, recapping this past weekend and looking ahead to the next.
Welcome back to Hawk Talk. We are here to recap the events of last week and look ahead to what's coming the few weeks to come. So, men's basketball had a few losses.
Yeah.
They lost to Northern, they lost to Jamestown, they lost to Rocky, but those are some good teams and all non-conference games.
Yep.
And so, it might have been a loss, it might be down a little bit, but I think they're going to come back. They have time to come back.
And technically, those don't really count towards our conference play, and so it's not going to affect us in the standings in the conference. And we're going to play our first conference game
on Saturday.
On Saturday,
Presentation.
At presentation, and it's going to be. I think that'll be a good test for us to see how we do before the break. This is the only conference game I think we have before Christmas, and so it's like we get one just
get
thrown
one
in.
in there.
So we'll see how we do, and I think that'll be a good game for us. The women's are going there too.
I agree.
But wrestling they're doing something different. We've talked about this a little bit. They're going to have a couple duels, a couple wrestling matches at before Christmas. They're headed to Great Falls this weekend, and Great Falls is a very solid program. I'm sure Northern Montana will be there as well.
Yep.
Two extremely solid programs. We go head to head with those guys every year, and so it'll be a good test. I know those guys have been preparing well.
We're a pretty solid program too.
So that's like we always battle really well with those guys, and so it's good to get that that knockout, drag down fight right away at the beginning of the year.
It'd be cool to hear results from that and see how that works. We had Ashley on the show today, women's basketball. They beat Northern, pretty exciting win, and then they lost to Rocky, which was not as exciting of an event to happen. But Rocky, we talked about, is ranked very highly, and so it still was a great game between the two teams. And then, like you said, they had presentation for their first conference game.
And again, same thing with them. Like, let's see what they do. Let's see how they perform. And I think it's good for both the men's and women's to not have any conference games the first month and a half. To just kind of gel.
Get a feel of like what the team is like, and
especially with the men's, like some of those games have been a little lopsided, but I think they're still figuring things out. And Coach Vaughn is just working some things out, and we'll see come after Christmas how things are going to go. Football is now over for me. My collegiate career is over. We went to Kansas Wesleyan and lost there by 3 points. Tough game. It was very nice weather.
It was a great game to watch.
Yeah, it was,
truly.
It was it was a battle from start to finish. It was a lot more. Not that we overlooked them, but they really came out to fight right away. And the stands were packed. It was fun. They had about half. We had they probably had 3/4, and we had about a quarter of. Our fans still made more noise, I say. And it was such a fun environment. A couple stats I do want to read off. Some historic DSU things going down. Kane Boshi is now tied for career interceptions with 24. And at one point in his career, he had like 3 picks a game for like 2 or 3 games. And so it's really cool to see how much those younger years, and even this year, he had quite a few picks this year. Those younger years really set him up to become a solid member of the Blue Hawk legacy. Becoming the #1 interception leader in DSU history. And then Hayden Gibson broke his own record by like 50 or 60 yards or something like that of a single game passing record. So he had 380 yards, and I think his last one was 350, 340 or something like that. But he broke his own record, so he's now #1 and #2 in single game passing yardage.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats to both of those guys. Jay Liggins, another milestone that he had most picks in a game last weekend or 2 weekends ago against Northwestern, had 4 in that game. And so that defense, some of those guys, Kane was here for 4 years, Jay was here for 5. It's just been years in the making, for those guys, and it's been really cool to be a part of this team the past 5 years. It's been. I talked to the team on Monday or Tuesday, and told them, football was one of the best things that I ever did in my entire life, and coming to DSU to play football was probably right up there with the best.
You're gonna make me cry.
Make myself cry.
Oh my gosh.
But and along those lines, meeting people, Parker and Nate, they were both at the game, and it was amazing. They were at
those guys,
both playoff games. It's like they love DSU so much, and they're out doing things. They're in grad school. They're in doing they're working
representing DSU well.
And they come to these games and just get those fans riled up. Like the parents were just loving it the whole time. And I think seeing those guys what they've done here at DSU, they set up Hawk Talk. Like they were the ones to set up to Hawk Talk on their little phone. Their phone at Players is what I always hear. They said we did it at Players. We would just interview coaches and players at Players, and then Consolidated came along and partnered with them. We're so thankful to Consolidated for doing that, and it really has turned into this Hawk Talk show. And so we're so thankful for Parker and Nate. They've always been good friends of mine. They've been great supporters, and I've always loved to talk with them over the years about football, about anything really. They are DSU. They bleed blue for sure.
They really do.
But transitioning into some more community things, we have the holiday concert you mentioned. Talk about when that is. I can't quite remember when that is.
So the holiday concert is December 9th, Sunday, December 9th at 2 o'clock p.m. At the Assumption Abbey in Richardson. And it truly is a beautiful facility. It's so amazing to sing in there because, we had Dr. Rogers on and he talked about choirs just love the acoustics in Catholic churches. And we do really love the acoustics. And he's right. But yeah, it's a great experience. We've got great repertoire lined up. It'll be an awesome concert, full of lots of exciting
I will be there.
things. So I will also be there. So you should be there too.
One other thing that's happening that weekend, December 7th, 8th, and 9th, is the Junie B. Jones, the children's play, the Christmas play. I'm so excited for that.
It's so cute.
It's going to be amazing. But
we'll be there too.
Hopefully we'll get maybe a member or two of that cast on the show next week. We'll see. Not making any promises, but we're going to try.
But fingers crossed.
But yeah, a lot of things coming up in both athletics and in the community of DSU in the arts, and we're excited for all of it. It's been a fun fall semester. And
it's been a busy fall semester.
Very busy.
It's
and
crazy.
we're coming right down to it. 2 or 3 weeks
oh my
left,
gosh.
and then we'll be right into Christmas, and we're excited for that. And then come into the new year,
We'll be
and
back.
we'll be
and
back.
then Seth will be graduated.
We'll be graduated, and I'm excited.
But he's still coming back.
I will be here.
Very good.
But we'll be back next week, and not we're not leaving yet. But we'll be back next week, talking sports, talking community, talking arts, choir, anything really at DSU. We're going to transition into that. But until then, Hawks are up.